Hello, everybody. Hope you're having a good evening so far. We're gonna do GENSHIN IMPACT once again. You still gotta get through all the endings in the Lynette hangout event. And later on we'll do a little bit of Chaos Head as well. So we got two of the endings on the Lynette Hangout event, which they're the two endings that come from the top main branch of the story. I can show you real quick here in a sec what I'm talking about. Yeah, so you go here. Okay, so as you can see here, we're working on the middle branch. There's kind of, early on, there's like 3 branches here, and we've done the top one. So this top branch here has 2 endings here. You see we've got them already. So right now we are on the middle branch here. So this is the one that involves the cat that Lynette found. She's trying to find the owner of the cat. Let's see.
Lynette, you're, not at rehearsal?
You can drop the act, brother. In fact, I don't think either of us will have a need for acting anytime soon. You should know better than to try and keep something from me. You've never been able to do that, even when we were kids.
And that's why I tried to distract you with the masked mime show. But I guess you're just too good.
Care to introduce us to your new assistant?
This is Officer Shovras, captain of the Special Security and Surveillance Patrol. You may have met her already.
We meet again.
Nice to see you. I should clarify something. Mr. Lenny's here at my invitation, not the other way around. To borrow your expression, Miss Lynette, I suppose that would make him my assistant more than anything. We've brought on Mr. Lenny as a consultant in the past. He was instrumental in helping us crack a case involving a perpetrator who used magic tricks to commit crimes. I was hoping he'd be able to provide some valuable insight this time around as well.
Are you here because of the Lefevre case?
So you've heard everything then?
That's exactly why we're here. There's always been questions surrounding the fall of the Lefevre family. Some people even believe the House of the Hearth was involved. Whoever was behind it all was extremely cautious. They didn't leave a shred of evidence. This very fact, however, leads me to believe it was indeed the work of that harbinger. I took a look at the entrance and exit records of all the carriages that night. Let's just say it wasn't hard to deduce that there's ill will between you two.
Hey, what's up, Ox? How you doing? Yeah, actually, I forgot. So this branch of the story starts out as trying to find the cat's owner, but then it like suddenly shifted into something. Honestly, I don't even remember. There was like a long speech that somebody gave about
Don't worry,
some
I
shit.
don't have any evidence to that effect, and I certainly don't plan on going to bat for such a despicable family. Plus, you were victims back then more than anything. I sought Mr. Linney's help with the smuggling case. Nothing more.
Oh yeah, something about Lynette getting kidnapped, but this was like a long time ago, I think.
The way I look at it, it's a collaboration between us as people, not the organizations we represent. Besides, by working together, we can expose the truth as quickly as possible. You can hardly say that's at odds with the justice my organization strives for.
I'm assuming you wouldn't be opposed to some extra help?
Not at all. I was planning to invite you from the very beginning, Miss Lynette. It's just that my assistant here raised some objections.
Linny, I'm not the same person I was back then. That little girl who did nothing but cower in the corner in fear, she doesn't need saving anymore.
But little sisters don't stay little forever.
I'm sorry, Lynette. You're right. I let my concerns get the better of me.
Oh. Yeah, I think my brothers played that before. Or it was like some zombie mode in a Call of Duty game. I don't remember which Call of Duty, but
Oh, and the next time you want to distract me, you should try a different approach.
Who's this? You pick up a stray while I was gone?
It's a bit complicated. I'll explain later. Anyway, her name's Bonnie.
Well, if there are no objections, then I suppose the only thing left to say is... Lynette, Traveler, welcome to the team.
It appears the Lefebvre family was very particular in their use of insignias and emblems. The family would use different emblems to mark differences in status, blood relation, and the like. In fact, the insignia that was discovered on the pendant was used to represent an illegitimate child.
so that would mean Pierre is a bastard child?
It's highly likely. That very status might have been what allowed him to emerge from the fall of his family relatively unscathed. It would also explain why he was able to assume a new identity as a researcher with relative ease.
We discovered something interesting, though. After talking to some of his co-workers, it appears he pretty much works at the Institute in name only. He's practically been cast out.
Wait, World at War? Is that like is that a mobile game? I don't know, World at War sounds like the name of a mobile game. Wait, what happened?
Apparently, Pierre was once addicted to synth. He tried to use the resources at the Institute to create a substance with a similar effect. He claimed it was just for research purposes, but the Institute revoked his access to the relevant materials regardless. He was placed on disciplinary leave, pending a thorough investigation of his actions. But it seems the Institute ran into some trouble along the way. Could have been a lack of personnel or a timing issue. In any case, they had to table their formal investigation into Pierre. Unfortunately, that also included reporting any relevant information to the higher authorities.
Oh, okay. It's an old Call of Duty. Okay.
As for his family background, it appears none of his co-workers at the Institute were aware of that information. All they could tell us was that he was quite the recluse.
Ugh. Did you find anything useful at his residence?
Other than the pendant, we didn't find anything else of note at his residence in Poisson. Based on the samples of imitation synth we've been able to analyze, it appears the substance leaves behind strong traces wherever it's produced or stored. Those traces might not be obvious to the casual observer, but they're not something our guard poodles would miss. Pierre's home, though, came up completely clean. We didn't find any records indicating possible involvement in overseas transactions either. So, the Marechaussee Phantom didn't view him as a major suspect at first.
Maybe he had a separate, dedicated area where he made the imitation synth.
Well, his neighbors did say he was often gone for long stretches of time. You would think with him out and about so much, people would have spotted him around Poisson, but residents said they barely ever saw him in town. If his reclusive nature was just a matter of keeping a low profile, I guess it would make sense for him to have a secret base to carry out his business.
After he disappeared, the guards conducted a thorough search of Poisson, but they didn't come across any suspicious locations.
Poisson.
Man, I'm sorry, but this branch is nowhere near as intriguing as the other one that we played through. What is it, Lynette?
You know Hotel de Boer, where I first found Bonnie? To get there from Poisson, you have to cross a stretch of ocean. It's not somewhere a cat could just wander off on its own.
A cat? You mean...
Bonnie is Pierre's cat.
Oh, that's right! When the Marechaussee Phantom first tracked him down, I remember there being something about a cat in their report. So this is her?
From what we've learned about Pierre's habits, he doesn't seem like the type to venture out without a purpose. So what you're saying, Lynette, is that Bonnie couldn't have gone missing in Poisson. If that's true, then...
She must have wandered off only after Pierre brought her to his secret base.
Exactly. Bonnie might even know where it is.
Wait, you think the cat can lead us there? But she's not trained like one of our guard poodles. How is she supposed to understand what we want her to do?
Should we leave the cat training or the cat whatever to Lynette, or should the traveler do it himself? Yeah, let's have Lynette do it.
Meow. Meow meow. Meow. Near the coast, the beach, and beneath the cliffs. The place we're looking for is most likely north of the Court of Fontaine.
Well, I've certainly never taken a witness statement like this before.
Well, if it works out, maybe it's something worth getting used to.
Cats and humans are actually pretty alike. When it comes to communication, most of what we want to convey can be accomplished through body language alone. But humans tend to rely too much on speech to ever take advantage of that fact. Of course, body language has its limitations. You're not going to be able to get across anything too complicated.
The important thing is that we now have a lead. Let's try and find a place that matches the clues Bonnie gave us.
Oh, it's over here. Okay. Totally worth it. Worth it to have Lynette do it.
Seems like Bonnie is trying to take us somewhere.
Nope, sorry. Not accepting World Crest right now. I mean, not accepting joining my world. Whatever.
Gardamex ahead.
Look out!
By royal decree.
Bow your head. I will have order. Stabilize. Let the mighty be humbled. As you wish, mein Fräulein.
As one with wind and cloud.
man.
Lynette. You found this place so easily. If I thought there was any chance you'd say yes, I'd recruit you into the Special Patrol here and now. No questions asked.
Sounds familiar. I pretty much receive letters daily from people trying to poach her from me.
Let's just focus on our search. There's a lot to investigate.
You know, I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. Lynette should totally ditch Lenny. Like, Lenny's holding her back, dude. Lenny is like stealing her thunder.
Aha! Just as we thought. This is where the imitation synth was being made.
These bottles and jars, they're all imitation synth.
Looks like he's got more than just imitation synths stashed around here. In addition to the raw materials needed to synthesize the substance itself, there's a large quantity of cleaning agents and a few drugs I haven't been able to identify.
Other way around? What?
These cleaning agents are likely used to dispel traces of the substance, like its smell. The Special Patrol did some digging into imitation synth. Our records indicate that it's very difficult for ordinary people to detect traces left behind by the stuff. I'm sure that was the case for Pierre as well. It must have taken a considerable amount of time and skill to ensure all those traces get washed away. But what are these other drugs for?
The material these bags are made of, it's quite rare.
Doesn't it look similar to the material used for your magic pockets?
It's the very same, actually. Romaritime flower fiber. But there's something special about the composition of these bags. I took a closer look, and it appears they're not only waterproof, but also corrosion and leak resistant. Even the strings look specially designed to keep the bags closed nice and tight. I came across some bags made of the same material just now, but they were much smaller and thinner. From the look of them, they seemed far less durable as well.
So, kind of like one of those small sealed bags?
Very similar, actually. Normally, it would be easy for a guard poodle to sniff out the imitation synth, but if it was sealed away in a bag like that, it might be possible to elude detection for some time. But what could these big bags be for then? If the goal is to keep the imitation synth hidden and sealed away, these bags seem a bit too conspicuous.
You must have moved them, but carrying them all the way out here would attract way too much attention.
You're right. That doesn't seem like his way of doing things. How did he get them here, then?
The barrels show signs of water damage. Dried up water stains can be seen around the circumference of the barrels. There seems to be a pattern to the location of the water stains. For some reason, they appear to be limited to the lower half of the barrels. The lids don't seem very tight, leaving sizable gaps around the edges, but there doesn't appear to be any traces of water inside the barrels.
Only the lower halves of the barrels appear to have been submerged in water.
Based on the various ingredients we've found, this appears to be where Pierre was cooking up his imitation synth. It looks like he used a special cleaning agent to get rid of any residual traces of the substance on his person before he left. That's how he was able to get past the guard poodles.
That's why the Marichaussee Phantom didn't find anything suspicious in his home.
So then he transferred the imitation synth into small sealed bags and took it somewhere else for the drop-off.
No. I don't believe our suspect is the kind of person who'd go around carrying incriminating evidence with him. That would potentially create too many eyewitnesses. The cleaning agent and the sealed bags might get past the guard poodles. But if a member of the public or even a guard on patrol happened to see him during the drop-off, a quick search would reveal everything. That's still a very risky operation.
Arthur the King? How was that? What about if the drop-off happened at sea? There'd be no one around to see him.
The barrels we found were wet around the base, but the top half was dry. As if they'd been standing upright in the water. If you put a barrel in the water, it will normally float on its side. Unless it's heavily loaded, in which case it'll sink.
Yeah. So he must have used something to tightly seal big bags full of air, turning them into airtight flotation devices.
Yes. With flotation rings around the body of the barrels, they'd stay upright in the water. And then he could afford to load them more fully.
You think he used floating barrels? I suppose if he acted at night, when there are very few other boats around and visibility is low, it's a valid theory. We can't rule it out.
But then, wouldn't the barrels be carried off by the waves or the currents? How would the person doing the pickup know where to look?
Barrels that could float away and get lost at sea sounds difficult to keep in one place. Kind of like certain pets.
Traveler, can you come take a dip in the sea with me? I have a feeling that somewhere down there, we might find some rope. If a rope can be used to keep a pet from running away, then why not a barrel? The wreckage of a small boat? This isn't the place. This isn't the place.
Bro, what the fuck?
Got it. Time to go up and report.
Well, that was fucking lame. killing second best girl. Jeez. How dare
As
they?
expected, we found a few pieces of rope and some anchoring stones underwater. If you attach them to a floating barrel, it would look like this. With this anchoring system, it would be possible to use floating barrels for the drop-off. You would just need to drop them in the water at the agreed-upon location. We also came across the wreckage of a small boat. It must have been left out on the water and capsized due to the force of the wind and waves. Its small size, however, would have made it perfect for staying undetected.
Who? Fischl.
Let's talk this through. Based on the evidence we've collected, it seems like Pierre would row a small boat out to the agreed-upon transfer point, drop off the barrels, leave, and then row back and retrieve them after the transfer was complete.
Wouldn't it be easier for both parties to meet up at the transfer point on their respective vessels and exchange the goods right then and there?
It could be that he was trying to avoid meeting up with his associate face to face. As one of the sole survivors of the Lefebvre family, maybe he was just used to that sort of elusive lifestyle.
It seems like Pierre deliberately chose the floating barrel method so that the goods could be dropped off and picked up at separate times. That way, the two parties wouldn't have to meet each other.
Well, if that's the case, they must not have a very close working relationship.
Let's not jump to any conclusions just yet. Assumptions can be detrimental to solving a case. It's possible they were just trying to keep a low profile. Two boats sailing to the same location at once could be too conspicuous. The most important thing is that we can now confirm Pierre wasn't acting alone. The floating barrel drop-off system is proof enough of that. Let's say for now that he was only in charge of producing the imitation synth. That would mean there has to be at least one other person involved in the operation, likely in charge of transporting the goods across the border.
That explains why we couldn't find evidence linking him to any overseas operations.
Since we've determined that the goods were transported by boat, maybe we can track down some travel logs or something.
We can certainly check the various ports for that information. It's possible, however, that Pierre's associate also used a small boat for the transport, and docked along the shore rather than at a large port. If that's the case, it's unlikely there would be any record left behind.
Isn't synth the stuff that can, like, make people dissolve? Have you looked into the ports already?
Absolutely. Before Pierre disappeared, we made sure to investigate all sorts of outward-bound vessels. We also had port authorities keep a lookout for anything suspicious. Unfortunately, we were never able to find out how they managed to get the imitation synth across the border.
A small boat and a few barrels isn't going to get you very far.
You're right. Whatever vessel was used for the pickup, the person responsible for smuggling the substance out of Fontaine would have had to use a larger vessel for the actual transport. That's the only way they would be able to smuggle on a large enough scale to make a profit. They must have found a way to disguise the imitation synth to clear port inspections.
We can still search for other clues.
Exactly. We can't let any opportunities slip through the cracks. Although, given the amount of ports that could be involved, we should probably split up.
I'll run home and ask some of my brothers and sisters to try and dig up some information.
I should also head back and update my platoon on our progress. I'll grab some reinforcements while I'm at it. Lynette, Traveler, why don't you head to Lumideus Harbor and see what you can find out?
All right. Come on, Bonnie. You too.
filled out all the encounter points. Alright.
Ad Astra at. Thank you for Ad Astra Abyssos.
The great phase reaction debate. I think we had an event, this phase thing before, so
I created another.
it sounds familiar. It rings a bell. All right. You know what time it is. Oh yes, lolly Rimi. Alright, yeah, what happened last time? So, I guess after, Senna and Kazupi both died, Rimi kind of freaked out and I guess went unconscious for a while. Takumi took her back to his place, which actually they were fighting like right outside his place, so I mean all he had to do was like drag her in there real quick. And then when she came to once again, she acted like she didn't remember anything, and she was behaving like a child. And yeah, she doesn't even like recognize Takumi or anything now. So she told Takumi that she likes soba noodles, so Takumi is now going out to get some for Rimi to eat. So that's where we left off. On my way to the supermarket, I looked around to see if any cops were nearby. Senna and Kazupi's bodies had both disappeared. If the police were nearby, that would mean there was a witness. And if they weren't, that would mean nobody had seen what had happened. If it was the latter, that might mean nobody was going to find out for a while. course, I also watched the shadows constantly to see if Shogun was lurking nearby, too. Fortunately, I wasn't feeling the gaze of God, but still, I didn't want to go out at night. The dark scared me. And when I looked into the dark, I could see Senna and Kazupi dying in front of me again. I could see their mangled corpses. I quickly looked away and stared down at my feet as I hurried to the supermarket. When I got back to the base, I pulled out the portable gas burner to boil some soba noodles outside. There was no air circulation inside the container house, and there was a lot of stuff that was flammable too. It was too dangerous to do it inside. I tossed some soba into the pot. Of course, they were cheap, dry, instant noodles. Rimi was looking at the pot, fascinated.
お蕎麦ってこうやって作るんだね。
The pool of blood from when Kazupi had died was still there. It was almost dry now, and at night it just looked like a dark stain. I broke down some of the cardboard boxes from my room and put them over it. It didn't actually help anything, but at least it saved me from having to look at it.
たくこぼれそうだよ。
I went back to the burner when Rimi called my name. It was boiling too much, and at the point of overflowing out of the pot. Rimi was just watching it, letting out small gasps of amazement. She wasn't moving at all otherwise.
火を消して。
Confused, she turned the dial on the burner and made it hotter.
売れたよ。すごい。
いや、すごいじゃないでしょ。
I quickly shoved her out of the way and turned off the heat. A lot of the water had spilled out of the pot. Well, whatever. As long as it was edible, I didn't need to think too much about how firm the noodles were, or how it tasted. I drained the noodles and washed them with cold water. I didn't know much of anything about cooking soba noodles. I just did it because that's what the instructions said.
冷やしとあったかいのとどっちがいい？
冷たいの。
I put them in a bowl and poured in some of the broth I'd bought at the store along with the noodles. For toppings, I had green onions. I sliced them up and we were done. I hurried back into the room with Rimi in tow. I could clean up tomorrow when it was light. For now, I didn't want to be outside unless I absolutely had to. I could still smell the blood. And even though I knew it was silly, I was still scared. It felt like Senna and Kazupi might come staggering out of the darkness covered in blood, like zombies.
ねえたく食べていい？食べていい？
Rimi didn't share any of my worries, it seemed. No, maybe that was why she changed from her last personality into this new one, so that she could forget the fact that she'd killed 2 people.
どうぞ。
いただきます。
She grabbed the chopsticks. She was holding them like a fork. She put her lips to the bowl and slurped the noodles up. She said, Well,
いただきます。
yeah, she said yay and then itadakimasu, which is like a... It's kind of like... It's just a saying that Japanese people say before they begin to eat. It's kind of like a prayer or whatever. Oh, before that?
ねたく食べていい？食べていい？
You mean that? This was exactly how a LOLI would eat. Thank you. Thank you very much. She'd forgotten how to use chopsticks, too, from the look of it. And how to make soba noodles or turn off a burner, too. But she still knew to say, let's eat, before she ate her food. It wasn't amnesia then. She just regressed to a childlike state.
食べられないよ。
え？
食べられない。
Rimi was having trouble eating her noodles and getting frustrated. She was trying to eat them the wrong way and it wasn't working.
食べさせて。
なんだと。
Was she serious? Rimi wanted me to feed her? I felt like I'd become her nurse. No, maybe her father? Please, I couldn't handle having a daughter my own age.
たく。
She said, "Hey Taku, can I eat? Can I eat?" She begged me exactly like a little girl would. I gave in and sighed.
ほら、あんして。
She brought her mouth down on the noodles I'd offer her and began to chew happily.
おいしいよ。
それはよかった。
Suddenly, I realized this was it. This was normal, everyday life with a 3D girl next to me. This was what I wanted. I didn't need any dramatic events like in an H game. No getting involved in her deep psychological traumas. No minor misunderstandings that blew up into fiascos. No murders to solve. This daily life was far too boring to be in a game or novel. But this is what I wanted. And now I had it. And it was with Rimi, too. Volcel? I don't know what that is. To be honest, I thought Rimi was cute. She'd even said she'd protect me. I wanted to be with her forever if I could. Well, I'm gonna be right back. I'm gonna just grab something to drink. Alrighty. Oh, yeah. Voluntary. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I see what you're saying. So like asexual, basically. But this was all a lie. This life wasn't going to last. And this Rimi wasn't Rimi. What I had now could end at any moment. And when I thought of that, it made me feel so sad, so lonely, so empty.
戻ってきてよ。リミ、本当に戻ってくれ。
I whispered.
メールだよボケナス
I gasped. I heard Seraton's voice from the computer. Somebody had sent me an email. Shogun? I had a bad feeling. Whatever was in that email, it wasn't good. I didn't want to see it.
僕を見るな。
Oh. I felt the gaze. Somebody was watching me. I felt stronger than it usually did. I looked around. Nobody was here but me and Rimi. I'd stopped feeding her, so Rimi had gone back to doing battle with her noodle bowl. She wasn't looking at me. Which meant there was only one person who could be looking at me. Whose eyes are those? I didn't even need to ask. I let out a moan as I headed to the PC. I checked my messages. They're Cheez-Its. There was only one new message. Its sender was Shogun.
くそ。くそ。
What did he want now? Was he going to kidnap Nanami for real this time? Or was he coming to kill me himself? The hairs on my body stood up in terror. The prickling at the back of my neck got even stronger. I felt sick. My head hurt a little, too. Please, don't look at me. I opened the email with shaking fingers on the mouse.
あれ
There was nothing there. The title just read, "Wake Up." There was no other text. Wake up? What was that supposed to mean? Awaken to my gigalomaniac powers or something? No way. I felt like Shogun had said something similar the first time we'd met.
バカにして。僕を怯えさせて、そんなに楽しいか？
I started to get mad, and at the same time I wanted to get rid of the fear that was building up deep in my chest. I slammed my palm down against the keyboard. A noise came from the speakers. Had I broken something?
目覚めて。もう時間がない。
I heard a sound. I heard something mixed in with the noise. I checked the PC, a little worried. The MP3 player wasn't running. I didn't have any video sites open in the browser either. I wondered if maybe Shogun had sent a virus along with the email, but there weren't any files attached to it.
時間がないんだ。
Again, I was hearing it again. It hurt to breathe. Sweat was beading on my forehead. Right. I could just kill the sound. If I muted the computer's sound, the confusing noise would go away. I clicked on the sound icon in the bottom right of the screen. When the volume control menu popped up, I set everything to mute. Now I wouldn't have to hear anything. That noise almost sounded like a voice, but whatever it was, I wouldn't have to hear it anymore. I was tired, confused, and on edge. Of course I was. I'd seen 2 people I know die right in front of me just a few hours before. And I'd seen something weird at the hospital when I'd went to see Ayase too. Then there was that weird call from Nanami. Whatever that noise was, it was just nerves.
目覚めて。
A voice.
時間がないんだ。
From the speaker.
もうすぐサードメルトが起き。
I heard it clearly. It was him. Shogun's voice. Just like when he'd spoken to me at Scramble Crossing.
なんでだよ。ミュートにしたはずだろ。
タク、サードメルトって何？
Rimi looked confused. The expression on her face was still one of childlike innocence. I rushed over to Rimi. I grabbed her by both shoulders and shook.
リミ、頼むよ。しっかりしてよ。
痛いよ。
言ってくれ。僕を守るって言ってくれよ。僕は一人じゃ耐えられない。このままじゃ殺される。
痛くしないで。
僕は君を責めないから。君がいてくれないと困るんだ。だから
痛いの。やだ。
Tears fell from her eyes. I was scaring her. Her shoulders were shaking. I slowly let go.
無用。目を覚まし。
The floor began to shake violently. An earthquake? And it was bigger than the last one? There was a violent ringing in my ears, the high-pitched sound of something resonating in a way that threatened to split open my head. It was like thousands of tiny needles being stabbed into my ears, and my brain being thrown into a blender. And then... with a terrible impact, my vision turned white. It felt like my body was lying in lukewarm water. I was floating along the surface, gentle waves lapping at me. When I woke up, an impossibly blue sky stretched out as far as I could see. It felt like I could fall into it. It was a strange sky. There was no sun anywhere. Hadn't I just been in my room? Hadn't it just been nightfall? When did I go outside? When did it become daytime? During the last earthquake, I'd been out for over an hour. Maybe this time, I'd been out for a whole night? I remembered the terrible impact of the earthquake. It was like the rumbling of the earth had resonated with the blood flowing through my body, and the vibration threatened to tear me apart. Maybe this was heaven? Maybe I died in that earthquake? Heaven? A creepy otaku like me wouldn't be allowed to go to heaven. Especially since I was such a terrible older brother, and I couldn't even protect my sister. I'd even forced Rimi to kill Kazupi and Senna. I belonged in hell. Of course, if I had the chance to go to heaven, I'd take it, though. My body felt weird. It was like I was walking on a fluffy cloud or something. I forced myself to sit up. I hadn't been imagining the waves lapping at me. The world around me was filled with clear water. I looked around and it was nothing but blue as far as the eye could see. I'd been lying on top of the water. Where was I? Was this really heaven? But it felt like I'd seen this place somewhere before.
あの空はどこにあるの？
I heard a voice in my mind, a voice coming from within my memories. Yeah, that's right. I'd seen this in a dream. Rimi had been there. I'd been talking to Rimi as she looked up at the blue sky. She looked so sad. Was this the same dream? But I looked around and there was nothing here but me. Nobody was here. Rimi wasn't here. It was all so silent. Rimi? I called out. I found I couldn't speak, but ripples appeared on the calm water. Are you here? Sounds are vibrations. The vibrations created waves. I could see someone lying in the water between the waves, just like I'd been a moment ago. I stood up. I could see further now. It was Rimi, lying between the waves. Her face was as pale as death. Her eyes were closed. Her hands were crossed over her chest. She wasn't moving at all, just lying there, face up. Rimi, wake up. But there was no response. She was probably dead. And it wasn't just Rimi. This world itself was dead. I stood there, confused. And then Rimi's body started to sink beneath the waves. By the time I realized what was happening, she was almost gone. How was I standing on water anyway? I got curious and looked below me. It was nothing but darkness. The sky was so bright. The water seemed so clear. But below it, there was endless, eternal darkness, and Rimi was sinking into it. I had to follow her. I needed her to wake up. But as soon as the thought entered my mind, the water suddenly gave way under me. I sank. My body got heavier. It was like I was underwater, but I could still breathe. And the water was so warm. There was something about it that made you want to stay here forever. Like it wasn't seawater, but amniotic fluid. This must be how a baby felt in its mother's womb. The darkness seemed to go on forever, but it had a bottom. It was too dark to see my feet, but I could feel something muddy up against the soles of my feet. I stood in the darkness. I looked up, but I couldn't see the water anymore. Here, the darkness hid the blue sky. The only thing to see by was a thin ray of light falling down from above the darkness. It was illuminating a single point like a spotlight, but there was nothing beneath it. It was lighting up an empty, meaningless point in space. I stepped into the light nervously. It was warm and gentle, but my chest began to ache the second I stepped inside. What was this feeling? It made me want to cry. It made me feel so sad, but I didn't know why. Where was Rimi? What happened to her after she sank? I left the spotlight and searched around in the darkness with my foot. My toes quickly bumped into something soft and springy. I crouched down and touched it. It was so cold I thought it would freeze my fingertips. Little by little, my eyes were getting used to the darkness. Then I realized I was touching a person. Rimi was lying there. Wake up. I shook her. Rimi, wake up. There was no answer. This Rimi wasn't breathing. I grabbed her limp hand and tried to take her pulse. She was dead. There was no pulse at all. Shocked, I looked around. This wasn't the only Rimi that was lying near me, dead. Countless Rimis were lying around me, like someone had entombed them here. They were all dead. It felt like this was a graveyard, the graveyard of Rimi's heart. Countless bubbles appeared before me. I could see that each of them had a different image inside. And somehow I knew that these were the memories of her deaths.
"私の最初の記憶は落ちてくる雨と空を覆い隠したどんよりとした雲。
When was it? I was still in elementary school. 6 years ago, maybe? It doesn't matter when it was. My memories aren't connected like that. I could see my dad lying there without a head, and my mom crushed by steel. A second ago, we'd all been in the car, happy to go on a family trip. And then a big truck came out of nowhere, and the next thing I knew, it squashed the car flat. It hurt so bad, like my whole body had been torn apart. I could barely stay awake. I could still hear the sound of the squealing car brakes playing again and again in my ears.
"次の記憶は手術台の上から見た眩しい光と男の人の声."
When was it? Right after I lost my parents. 5 years ago, maybe? Doesn't matter when it was. My memories aren't connected like that.
担当医に剣のようなものが見えたと言ったそうですね。聞こえていますか？さん。
It felt like he called my name, but I can't remember what that name was. That name was already dead.
まだ傷が癒えていないようですね。ご両親が目の前で亡くなったのもショックでしたか？では、聞いているだけで結構。私はこの AH 東京総合病院の名誉院長でありスポンサーでもあるノロセと言います。
Yeah, I remember I think they mentioned earlier in this route even that Nozomi had like infiltrated the Tokyo General Hospital. So like some of the people from Nozomi worked there.
君はギガロマニアックスである可能性があります。ぜひその力に覚醒していただきたい。幸いにも君は天涯孤独になったので、親族などの煩わしい連中も湧いては来ない。
Okay, that made it sound like he killed them.
というわけで、君は今日をもって死亡扱いとなりました。以後、この地下室で過ごしてもらいます。
Nice.
何の心配もいりません。ここは私しか知らない部屋ですから。頑張って目覚めてください。期待していますよ。君は実験台です。力を持つ非覚醒者を目覚めさせるためには何が必要か、いろいろと試させてもらいます。明日からね。
I just stared into the lights hanging from the ceiling. I didn't like the dark.
次の記憶も手術台の上から見た眩しい光と男の人の声。
When was it? Locked in that basement, I quickly lost track of time. It doesn't matter when it was. My memories aren't connected like that.
実に我慢強いお嬢さんですね、君は。背中の皮膚がただれて血が出ているのになぜ耐えようとするのです？早く目覚めれば楽になるというのに。
I just stared into the lights hanging from the ceiling. They blinded my vision, made it so I didn't have to look at anything else.
次の記憶も手術台の上から見た眩しい光と男の人の声。
When was it? Locked in that basement, I quickly lost track of time. It doesn't matter when it was. My memories aren't connected like that.
痛いですか？皮膚の表面を切るだけですよ。血はたくさん出ますが、死ぬほどではありません。3日も放置すれば、可能してかゆみがひどいことになるでしょう。そこからが今回の実験の本番です。安心してください。私は医者なのでね、メスの扱いには慣れています。そうですね。10箇所ほど切り刻みましょうか。
I just stared into the lights hanging from the ceiling. They blinded my vision, made it so I didn't have to look at anything else.
次の記憶も手術台の上から見た眩しい光と男の人の声。
When was it? Locked in that basement, I quickly lost track of time. It doesn't matter when it was. My memories aren't connected like that.
そうですか、かゆいですか。しかし、引っかくことは許しませんよ。人というのは実に不思議なものでしてね。痛みは意外と我慢することができるのですが、かゆみはそうでもないのです。痛みよりもかゆみの方が精神をおかしくさせるには効果的かもしれませんね。
I just stared into the lights hanging from the ceiling. They blinded my vision, made it so I didn't have to look at anything else. And then I killed myself.
次の記憶も手術台の上から見た眩しい光と男の人の声。
All right, we're gonna stop here for tonight. Break up the monotony of the repeating dialogue. So, all right, man. Tomorrow is Thursday. So yeah, I will stream again tomorrow night. It'll be the same thing we did tonight. We'll just continue the hangout event on Genshin Impact, and then we'll switch over to Chaos Head. So, All right. Have a good night. See you tomorrow.